Hi, good morning. I can't believe how quickly the weeks just seem to fly by. Here we are recording Psalms again. And today I want to look at Psalm 84. So let's just read it together, shall we? So this is Psalm 84. It says, "How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty, my soul yearns, even faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar. O Lord Almighty, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, who set their hearts on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. Hear my prayer, O Lord Almighty. Listen to me, O God of Jacob. Look upon our shield, O God. Look with favour on your anointed one. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked. For the Lord is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favour and honour. No good thing does he withhold from those whose walk is blameless. O Lord Almighty, blessed is the man who trusts in you." What would really satisfy us? What would be really, really, really satisfying? What would feel really, really, really good? Would it be £1 million? Would it be just a nice lay-in on a Sunday morning? Would it be the perfect relationship? Would it be a Porsche or Lamborghini? What would it be? What would satisfy, or what do we think would satisfy our deepest desires? This psalm explores the issue of pleasure, of desire. And one of really, and many other psalms do as well. And one of the really important things to say is that desire is good. Christianity is not about suppressing desire. Christianity is not about suppressing pleasure. Christianity starts from the principle that God made us the way we are. He made us with desires, and that actually desire is good and pleasure is good and satisfaction is good. The problem is that often we are too easily satisfied. As C.S. Lewis once said, we settle for making mud pies in a small corner when what's on offer is a trip to the beach. We are too easily satisfied. And what this psalm is exploring is that actually our ultimate satisfaction should be God himself. That God himself is pleasure. That God himself is the ultimate satisfaction. This psalm starts with the phrase, how lovely, how lovely, how satisfying, how pleasurable is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty. Now for the psalmist, that was the temple in Jerusalem. It was a physical building. That's where every Israelite wanted to go on pilgrimage. And that was where God was and where God was to be found. But for us, of course, God's presence is not in a building in Jerusalem. It's a much easier attainable thing and a much broader thing. We can step into God's presence, if we're Christians, at any moment just by turning our thoughts to the God who dwells in our heart, if we're a Christian, to the God who is all around us. We can, as that famous monk once put it, practice the presence of God. Learn to tune in and turn our thoughts to him in any time and any place. And so this psalm is saying to us, how lovely is that? How satisfying is that to be able to access God and tune into God wherever we are. Christian is not meant to be some pale-faced, anemic experience. It offers us a full-blooded, satisfying experience of life. Did not Jesus say, I have come that you might have life, and life in all its fullness? And it's a relationship with God that offers us that deepest satisfaction. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord God Almighty. So this psalm is about enjoying God, and I just want to go through it and think about some aspects of what it means to enjoy God. First of all, enjoying God starts with hunger. The psalmist says, verse 2, my soul yearns, even faints, for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. He's hungry. He's hungry for God. He's hungry for the pleasure and the satisfaction God brings. I wonder how hungry I am sometimes. I wonder how hungry we are. Can we live without God? Sadly, sometimes we can go days and weeks even without really drawing near and touching base. Without prayer, without worship. But the psalmist doesn't want to do that. He's got an appetite. How's your appetite for God? And if it's weak, you know what? There's a couple of things you can do. Well, first of all, you can ask God. You can say, Lord, you know me. You know what I'm like. You know how easily satisfied I am with trinkets and trivialities. Lord, will you increase my appetite for you? But there's another thing you can do if you want to improve your appetite, and that is feed it. Appetites which are fed grow. And appetites which are neglected, they weaken. So if you don't pray for a week, your appetite for prayer, it won't become greater, it'll become less. If you don't come to church for a month, your appetite for church and for fellowship and for worship, it won't become greater, it'll become weaker. That's the psychology of how we're made. Appetites which are fed will grow. So if your appetite is weak, you've got to make some disciplined, willful decision and start to feed it. Start to pray, start to read the scriptures, and you will find your appetite for those things grows. So if your appetite is weak, ask God to improve it, but you do something too. Start to feed it and watch it grow. So enjoying God starts with hunger. Secondly, it leads to praise. It says, blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are forever praising you. They are forever praising you. And it's not that God's insecure and he needs people to say, you're wonderful. That's not what praise is about. It's that praise is the natural overflow of our satisfaction. You wouldn't think of supporting a football team and not praising them. On somebody's wedding day, you see a beautiful bride, and the overflow of that is to praise. Oh, isn't she gorgeous? Praise is the natural overflow of our appreciation and our satisfaction. So if we're enjoying God and appreciating God, then that should overflow into praise. We speak of the things that we value. We celebrate the things that we admire. And that's good and it's right. We praise the things that we love, and so it's natural that we should praise God. The third thing about enjoying God, is that it requires a journey. This third paragraph, the psalmist speaks of a pilgrimage. Now for him that was physical. If you lived up north in Israel, you'd have to make a journey to Jerusalem, to the temple. Maybe you'd go once a year, maybe once a lifetime for some. But in the same way, our Christian walk is a pilgrimage. It is a journey. And there's two things about that. Well, the first is that it's got to start. And if there's anybody listening to this who's not yet a Christian, I need to say to you, you need to start. That journey has got to start. You've got to come to the cross. There's a cross behind me here. I've switched it on today, which is probably making the lighting on my camera fluctuate badly. But that journey starts at the cross. You've got to come to Christ. You've got to make a decision to follow him. Have you started that journey? But I know many of you listening to this have started that journey. You have made a commitment to Jesus. My question to you is the reminder that you've never arrived. That even if we've made a start, we've got to continue. Jesus said, pick up your cross daily. He added that word daily. In other words, he said, this isn't just a once for all decision that you can make and forget about. It's a daily walk. It is a journey being a Christian. We've never arrived. There's always new things to discover about God, new things to discover about ourselves, new seasons, new patterns of worship. Don't cling to how it was when you were a new Christian. Sometimes we feel we've missed and lost those feelings. Well, yeah, that's natural. Just like a marriage grows and evolves and you don't always feel the same as you did when you first met somebody. That's just part of a developing relationship. We can't go backwards in our Christian walk. We've got to move forward. We've got to grow with those changes and accept that and understand that. Don't hanker after some experience of the past. Move forward. Let the journey take you forward. It is a journey. We've got to keep moving on that journey. The other thing to say about this journey is that sometimes it's going to be dry, and that's normal. It says here in this psalm, it says they pass through, speaks about passing through the valley of Baca. The valley of Baca was a dry place, and the pilgrims had to go through it. And sometimes in our Christian walk there are dry periods. That's normal. It might be because you're doing something wrong, but it might not be. It might be for no particular reason whatsoever other than the undulating seasons of life. There are dry places in our journey. But look what's promised, that in that dry place there will be a place of springs and there will be autumn rains. Keep going. If you're stuck in the desert and the oasis is 10 miles away, the best thing you could do is just put one foot in front of the other in the right direction. Sometimes a Christian life is a plod. That's not a bad thing. Sometimes we've just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and it feels a bit dry, but there is an oasis coming. There will be a place of springs. There will be blessing and autumn rains. The journey goes through dry places. Don't stop. Don't give up. Keep walking. Keep moving. The fourth thing about enjoying God is that it brings a change of perspective. The psalmist here, he says, better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. And I'd rather be a doorkeeper in God's house than dwell in the tents of the wicked. Better no celebrity, no fame, no riches, no glory, and a simple walk with God than some of the things that this world chases. And better half an hour in simple prayer in God's presence each day than hours and hours and hours spent just doing your own thing. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. Better a doorkeeper than dwell in the tents of the wicked. How's our perspective on what's really important in life? And finally, if we make God our satisfaction, it will bring blessing. The Lord bestows favour and honour. No good thing does he withhold. Blessed is the man and the woman who trusts in you. Blessing doesn't mean we always get just what we want the way we want it. But it does mean that God is for us and he is with us and he wants to bless our lives. He wants our lives to be rich and fulfilling in the right way. He wants to be with us. He's not a stingy, mean God who wants to suck the life out of us. That's what the atheist often accuses Christianity of being, that it's lifeless, that it's bloodless. Well, yeah, there are some Christians who lead a lifeless, bloodless life, but that's not how it's meant to be. The Christian life is meant to be life in all its fullness under God's blessing. Do we satisfy ourselves with trinkets and trivialities when the presence of God is just waiting for us to step in and drink deeply? Come to me and drink, says Jesus. Come to me, whoever is thirsty, and I will give you to drink from the waters of life. Let's just pray. Lord, thank you. that you can satisfy our hearts and our souls, that they were made to be satisfied by you. Make us hungry people who are always journeying into your presence. Amen. God bless.
I fill my life with things that take my eyes off you and all you call me to. Live just to please myself.